devotees who will need a French translation, who will volunteer to do a French translation. Okay, Kiss, do you want to sit a little bit back, maybe move back a little bit, with Induleka and Mice. Induleka, are you okay moving over there? Is that okay? Anyone else needing a French translation?
Ceux qui ont besoin d'une traduction française, qui s'assoient. Baptiste.
So we're reading today is actually the last verse of the first chapter of the 10th canto. It's text number 69, which I believe is on the board. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so there's one line trouble. If you kindly repeat, please. Ugasenam Cha Pitaram Yadu Boja Andaka Adipam Vayam Nigriya Ubuje Shurasena Mahabalaha Ugasenam Chapitaram Yarubojan Dakaripam Vayam Nigriha Bubuje Shurasena Mahabalaha Ugasenam Chapitaram Yarubojan Dakaripam Svayam Nigriha Bubuje Shurasenan Mahabalaha Ugasenam Chapitaram Yarubojan Dakaripam Svayam Nigriha Bubuje Shurasenan Mahabalaha Ugasenam Chapitaram Yarubojan Dakaripam Svayam Nigriha Bubuje Shurasenan Mahabalaha
Ugrasenam Chapitaram
Ugasenam Chapitaram
Yadubojan Dakaripam
Yarubojan Dakaripam
Svayam Nigriya Bubuje
Svayam Nigriya Bubuje
Shurasenan Mahabala
Shurasenan Mahabalaha
Ugrasenam Chapitaram
Ugasenam Chapitaram
Yadubojan Dakadipam
Yarubojan Dakaripam
Svayam Nigriya Bhuje
Svayam Nigriya Bhuje
Shurasenam Mahabalaha
Shurasenan Mahabalaha. Ladies. Ugasenam Chapitaram
Yadubojan Dakadipam Svayam Nigriya Bhuje Shurasenam Mahabalaha Ugrasenam Chapitaram Yadubojan Dakaripam Svayam Nigriya Bhuje
Shurasenan Mahabalaha. Gurukulis. Pre-Gurukulis. Who was that? Made that wonderful endeavor. Harry Ball. Sangita. That was right. Ugasenam
Ugrasena,
unto Ugrasena, Cha, and Pitaram, who was his own father, Yadu, of the Yadu dynasty, Boja, of the Boja dynasty, Andhaka, of the Andhaka dynasty, Aripam, the king, Swayam, personally, Nigraha, subduing, Ubuje, enjoyed, Shurasenan, all the states known as Shurasena, Mahabalaha, the extremely powerful Kamsa. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, the A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Kamsa, the most powerful son of Ugrasena, even imprisoned his own father, the king of the Yadu, Boja and Andhaka dynasties, and personally ruled the states known as Shurasena. Purport. The state known as Mathura was also included within the states known as Shurasena. End of purport. What to say? Well, there's an interesting, we'll go, there's a commentary, additional notes on this chapter. We'll look at some of those notes. They're very long, about 12 pages, I think at least, and maybe quite long. We'll look at a few points we'll mention therein. But before we do that, there's something, well, there's many things, but there's one particular thing we'll mention here. The son of Ugrasena. Now, there are in the, what's the word? When you describe family lineage, there's an English word, was it?
Family tree?
Pardon?
Family tree?
Could say in simple terms, the family tree. There's another more technical term. Pardon? The genealogy. Okay, good. Sounds very technical. It sounds technical enough. The genealogy of the family. We hear, for instance, earlier in this chapter, how Kamsa was driving a chariot with his sister named Devaki. Now there's a relationship here between Kamsa and Krishna also. We sometimes hear Kamsa is Krishna's uncle. So there's family connections here. And Nanda Maharaj, the father of Krishna, and Vasudeva, the father of Krishna, sounds strange. They're both considered fathers of Krishna. And they are also very closely connected. Nanda Maharaj's father was? Pardon? Parjanya. Parjanya was a Pardon?
Vishya.
He was a Vaishya. He was predominantly a Vaishya nature. Their father, what was the name, Devamita or something like that? Married two wives. One was a Vaishya, one was a Kshatriya, from the Vaishya wife. And he gave birth to Parjanya. And Parjanya also married a Vaishya wife. So more or less, although we hear in King Nanda, he also had a kingly aspect. So he was, but considered Vaishya because his business was protecting the cows. Vaishya's business may be agriculture, protecting cows, trade, like that. So he's particularly, Nanda Maharaj was protecting cows. That was his predominant occupation. And on the other line, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, I can't remember his name, but maybe David Lee or something like that, had another son from a Kshatriya wife. His name is Surasena. And he had a son named Vasudeva. So they're like cousins, huh? Right, isn't it? Cousins. Nanda and Vasudeva would be cousins by genealogical understanding. And interestingly, Krishna, of course, that's another story. We won't get into that. It'll come up in the next chapters. How Krishna takes birth both from Vasudeva and Devaki, and also from Nanda and Yasoda. And now, where does Ugrasena come in? Excuse me, where does Kamsa come into this picture? Devaki, okay. Devaki's father was? Devaka. Devaka. And Devaka had a brother named Ugrasena. They're brothers. Ugrasena was a very pious king. How did he give birth to such a sinful person as Kamsa? He's a very pious king. Great king. As we see later on, Krishna installs him as the emperor, basically speaking, of the Yadu dynasty. He was a great personality and a great devotee, but he gave birth to the infamous demon Kamsa. Probably in Krishna's pastimes the most notorious of the demons, in Krishna's pastimes. So let's read a little secret here. This is from the Bhagavatamrita by Sanatana Goswami. Padmavati was Ugrasena's wife. The Shrishti Kanda 48 to 51 of the Padma Purana describes that after their marriage, Ugrasena and Padmavati, Padmavati stayed a short time in the house of her father, King Satyaketu. At that time, a demonic messenger of Kubera's, named Gumila or Gobila, became attracted to her, and by disguising himself as Ugrasena, he seduced her. The child born from this illicit connection was Kamsa. So he's not actually the son of Ugrasena. Appears to be, but he's the son of a demon. Well, that's just, some of you have heard it before, of course, but that's just a little mystery behind, it's kind of, it's nothing absolutely unusual, but it's quite unusual that a son, imprisons his father. Quite unusual. It's not absolutely unusual. It does happen in history. In this case, there's more than just an emotional reaction on behalf of Kamsa. There certainly is. Why is it Kamsa seemingly so, it may be interpreted as fearful. Why? Why so fearful that he's arrested Vasudeva and Devaki? Now he's about to kill their sons one by one. And he's arrested his own father, Ugrasena. Why is he so fearful? Something's just happened, hasn't it?
They're all related to Krishna.
Well, they certainly are all related to Krishna, but what triggered off the reaction of Kamsa all of a sudden? Because if we backtrack a little bit, Kamsa was a little pacified by Vasudeva. After Vasudeva convinced him, don't worry, you have nothing to fear from Devaki, she's not going to kill you, it's her 8th son who will kill you. I promise you, I will give you every newborn son of my wife, and you can do what you like with them. And so he did. But Kamsa was quite impressed when Vasudeva brought the first child. Huh? But then what happened? He said, you can take that child away. I don't have to regret that child. Yes, that personality named Narada Muni suddenly appeared on the scene. He's quite a character, isn't he? Narada Muni. And what did Narada Muni do? He has a unique position. What did he do?
He preached to him.
He preached. He preached to Kamsa. Very nice preaching. First class preacher. He can preach to demons and devotees alike. Eh? But the nature of the preaching may be somewhat different. What did he preach to him?
He said you cannot trust your enemies, the demigods. They may take birth everywhere, anywhere. They have a plan.
Yes, he said, I've just come down from the heavenly planet. In the garden of Janananda, I was overhearing the demigods discussing with Lord Brahma how they will kill all the demons, including you, and they will take birth in the families of Surasena, the Andaka, the Yadu, this dynasty, that dynasty. So you better be careful, you don't know who they are. You better take precautions for your own welfare here. You see? Now that sounds strange, doesn't it? Doesn't it sound weird? Narada Muni is topmost devotee, but he's giving interesting instructions to topmost demon almost. So what is he doing? Why is he doing this?
We want to Krishna appear very quickly.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that's how it's explained. One wonders if that will make it any quicker or not. I don't know. That's how it's explained.
He's also concerned by the 6 children who are going to appear.
Yeah, there's another history there, isn't it? That's, Prabhupada says exactly what you said. It's stated in the scriptures exactly what you said. Let's finish the first one first. Be a little patient. Be a little patient. And yes, the 6, as I said, the 6 sons. Pardon?
The son of Marichi.
They were sons of Marichi. Very early on in the stages of the universe, there was one demigod named Marichi. And he had 6 sons, and Brahma's role was to create the various species of life and the various aspects, you could say, of creation, amongst them the 6 senses, including the mind, amongst them the 6 enemies. We heard the other day, lust and greed, anger, and so on. And they were personified as the 6 sons of Marichi, and they criticized Lord Brahma when they saw Lord Brahma, another incident, another pastime, chasing his own daughter one time. So they laughed and they were cursed. They would take birth as the sons of demons. And they took birth as the son of who? Later on, the son of? Pardon? Initially, the first birth they took, the son of demons, Vasudeva wasn't exactly a demon. Not from Hiranyakashipu. They became the grandsons of Hiranyakashipu. The son of?
They are the grandsons. They are children of the son of Hiranyakashipu.
They're grandsons of Hiranyakashipu. So who was their father? No. Prahlad was not a demon. I don't think he was. I heard somewhere he was a devotee. Kalaname. Very great demon. And his genealogical tables are very complex, and obviously none of us can remember it all. But they took birth as the sons of Kalaname, or grandsons. I assume that he was the son-in-law of Hiranyakashipu. I haven't found out exactly, but as far as I know he was. And then he had these 6 children, And they independently from Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu, like Kamsa, like materialistic people, like everything to be under their control. One of the characteristics of demoniac mentality is one considers himself the controller more and more and more. And anyone who gets in the way of one's control is an enemy. Basically speaking, anything or anyone, and generally a demon doesn't have much discrimination other than that, and doesn't consider much the feelings of that personality, and would go to any measures really to get them out of the way. To a certain extent, this demoniac mentality is there probably in all conditioned souls. Maybe not to a great extent in some, but in Kamsa is a very great extent. In Hiranyakashipu, the grandfather of these 6 children of Kalaneni, to an absolute extent, he was very strong. He couldn't allow anyone to exist practically unless they were under his control. We sometimes get that in our own Krishna consciousness movement, that unless someone works under my control, then they have to be condemned or whatever it may be. It's sometimes a delicate issue. I remember one time I was not in France, in another country. We'll get into details, but the temple present there was rather notorious as being rather, is that the right word, autocratic, very, demanding and expecting everyone to do what he says. And if you don't, then buzz off. That type of personality. So one of my senior godbrother, not senior to me, but senior to him, a senior godbrother, a really good preacher, financially well-to-do, wanted to go to that city to preach. It was a wonderful city and not much preaching was going on. So he asked me, do you think it'd be possible you could ask if I could go there and start a preaching center? I'll pay for everything. I'm not asking anything from anyone. And so I talked to the temple president, and the president said, no problem, as long as he does exactly what I tell him to do. Let's see the mentality. Control freak mentality. Cooperation does not mean that. Cooperation means to recognize the unique gifts that God has given everyone and to work together to see how they can be used for the pleasure of Krishna effectively. It doesn't mean one under the other necessarily. It means working together for the same purpose. Unity in diversity. But that subject matter, for those who are demoniac, means you have to do what I say or you're finished. That's the tendency of demoniac mentality. So Hiranyakashipu was very angry when he heard that these 6 children had gone, grandchildren, had gone to Lord Brahma without his permission. Who gave you permission to go there? How can you be independent of me, as if Lord Brahma is greater than me? And they got some boons from Lord Brahma. Hiranyakashipu became very angry, and what did he do? Remember what Hiranyakashipu did? Pardon? He cursed them. He liked cursing people. He cursed them. That's another aspect of demonic mentality. They like to curse people. Sometimes great devotees curse also, but great devotees' curses are always for the benefit of that person. The demons curse for their own benefit. You want to, punish somebody, they like to, because they're offended. So he cursed them. And what does the curse? Because you have disobeyed my command, you will, in your next lifetime, you will be killed by your own father. As it mentioned in the scriptures, their father will be Kamsa. Devaki. They'd be killed, their father would be killed by their own father. Yeah, the father would take birth as cancer. Kalanemi took birth as cancer. And he killed his own sons, although he didn't know they were his own sons. They were actually his own sons, taken rebirth as the sons of Devaki and Vasudeva. He killed them one by one by one. So this was ordained to happen. So Narada Muni was just fulfilling the, you could say, the course of providence. And making sure that, and we wouldn't have this whole pastime if it wasn't for that, would we? The whole pastime is, although you could say from a material point of view, is a bit cruel, to say the least, a bit barbaric, odd, questionable, and whatever term you want to use, horrible. You could say many things. But what's the effect of hearing these pastimes? We hear earlier in this 10th chapter of the Bible Talmud, I don't know if I can locate the verse just like that, but there's some beautiful verses of Parikshit Maharaj. Here's one. Parikshit Maharaj, who is hearing this subject matter, he's hearing it from Shukadeva Goswami. And how is he hearing it? He's got 7 days left to live, as most of you know. He's also been cursed to die within 7 days. Not a very nice thing to happen. He took it very positively. A devotee takes every situation with Krishna's hand behind it. He doesn't necessarily, different circumstances may result in different reactions, but internally the devotee never takes it in a, let's say, in a repulsive or an aggressive or reactionary way. He takes it as Krishna's hand. There's a reason for this, and to try to take advantage of the situation. Parikshit took full advantage of the situation. What did he do? He was cursed to die within 7 days. What did he do?
Renounced the kingdom.
He gave up his kingdom, and what did he do?
He went to the banks of Yamuna.
It says Ganges. Ganges and Yamuna, there's an ongoing rivalry here as to where it was. Yamuna is also considered Ganges, just like Mathura here is mentioned, is also considered to be Sura's kingdom of Surasena, interchangeable. So he went to the holy place, a holy place on the banks of the Ganges, and what did he do? What was his intention? Wanted to hear.
About the Lord.
Yeah, he went there to fast until death. He wasn't going to eat. He was just going to fast to death. And he wanted to hear the nectarian pastimes of the Absolute, of the Supreme. And, well, by Krishna's arrangement, many great saintly persons assembled there. And by Krishna's arrangement, Sukadeva Goswami appeared. And it was his role, and there were great souls there assembled there in that place, many great personalities. You can see that. Sometimes you see the picture, I don't know if it's here, here it is. You can see assembled there Narada Muni. Even looks like his own father assembled there. Great saintly sages have sat there, but Sukadeva Goswami, the son of Vyasadeva, was established as a speaker of this subject. Incredible. So, Parikshit Maharaj, here's one saying, because of my vow on the verge of death, I've given up even drinking water. Yet because I am drinking, he's drinking. What is he drinking? The nectar of topics about Krishna. That's what he's drinking. Which is flowing from the lotus mouth of your Lordship, referring to Shukadeva Goswami. My hunger and thirst, which are extremely difficult to bear, cannot hinder me. And it's quite likely, I can't read the whole purport here, but it's quite possible that this word Prabhupada says that this is a wonderful example of how this Krishna conscious movement will spread. Does it mean we have to give up eating and sleeping? We have to sit on the banks of the river Torment in a Kiye or something? River Torment, is that what it's called? No, thanks. In a Kiye and fast until death, hoping that some saintly people will come along there, and the local residents will come and speak to us about Krishna Katha. Is that what we have to do? How does that apply to us, and how is this an example of how Krishna consciousness can spread throughout the world? Well, that's explained in another verse, text number 4, or 8, is it? I can't remember. Maybe it's 8, no, it's 4. Text 4. This is perhaps the most famous verse in the first chapter. And not only in the first chapter, I don't know in this book, but in the Krishna book, it is even written in the very beginning of the Krishna book. It's a very famous verse, 10:1-4. And in many ways, this is the one of the essential verse to at least understand in the sense of grasping or understanding the whole aspect of Krishna consciousness, really. Virvitatarshir Purna Vilageta Ashurvigana. What does it mean? Very important verse. Even Prabhupada says, what I mean by we should learn verses like this. Yeah, she writes that. Pardon?
We should hear constantly the voice of the Lord as a
Yeah, you could say the essential heart of it. We'll read it. Glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is performed in the Parampara system. Parampara system means the system, some of you are new, and friends from Coventry have not heard this word before. Parampara, you've never heard that word.
The chain.
Yeah, you got it, well done. Chain. It is like a chain. Chain of what? Discyclic succession, which is also an unusual word in English, discyclic. Many people won't quite grasp it, some may. A line, unbroken line of succession. You may have that with kings, and particularly it's needed, in fact, in the spiritual line, one spiritual master to the next, passing down the message in line. So this is how we receive the message. It's not a concoction, it is passed down. It's not some myth or somebody's imagination. It is not subject matter which is passed down from the origin to the present. So it's heard, or it's rather glorification is performed in the proper way. It's not a manufacture of modern fertile brains, but it is a system passed down by the pure devotees. That is, it is conveyed from spiritual master to disciple. Such glorification is relished. Sometimes we don't relish it. I was thinking this morning, I don't know what everyone's doing exactly, but I know what I'm doing can to a certain extent, only to a certain extent, but you know, I don't know what everyone else is doing. I'm just wondering what type of taste do we have for the holy name? What type? Of course, there's no hard and fast rule, you could say, but you know, as we advance in our Krishna consciousness, we hope we advance, we would expect the taste for the holy name, or chanting the holy name, glorifying the holy name, to increase, isn't it? Would we expect that? It's supposed to happen. Now, if we honestly look at our own hearts and our own lives, we may question where we're at, I guess. You know, sitting in the temple room, started off with, I think, after Mangalarti. Of course, yesterday many devotees were tired, for whatever reason. 2 hours Harinam, exhausted. For whatever reason it was. Maybe. I didn't catch your names. What's your name?
Ryan.
Ryan?
Lucas.
Luton?
Lucas.
Lucas and Ryan. Lucas and Ryan. Well, were you there at 4 o'clock, 4:30 this morning?
No.
You came a little later. No problem. Understandable. And quite a lot of devotees were here after the ceremony, and maybe 12 devotees, and then after about 30 minutes, 8, and then after 50 minutes, 4. And I left, so I don't know what happened after that. But, you know, what is a taste for the holy name? Taste for glorification of Krishna. Maybe a little mechanical, we have some faith, we're chanting because we believe. Not just believe, we have strong conviction that this chanting will lead to the desired result. But, you know, we have to chant with earnestness, we have to chant with enthusiasm. We may wonder, are we doing that? Well, we be enthusiastic about other things, whatever they may be. But to be enthusiastic about chanting, such glorification, and that devotee, when we say at our stage of devotional service, we may not have that realization, but when we realize that the name is Krishna, that Krishna is fully present, he's invested all of his transcendental opulences in the presence of his name, Namarupa, the form of name. Naturally, one will relish. If something is very important to us, very dear to us, we relish hearing about it. So Krishna is the most dear to every living entity. But we sometimes forget that, and we just mechanically chant mindlessly almost. That's okay, that's part of the beginning stage. But we may not relish it, and we were easily distracted by other objects. Now, Parikshit Maharaj was not distracted by anything. This is the essence. Not even tiredness. You know, many of you are probably tired and hungry right now. And you're wondering, oh, it's for breakfast. Maybe I can squeeze some sleep in later in the day or something, I don't know. But something, distractions are very commonplace. So with Parikshit, he was not at all distracted. He was completely focused on his goal. What was his goal? Well, that became his goal. What was his goal? His goal, we could say, was to fast the time of death.
He wanted to know what is the highest duty for a man on the verge of death.
That was what he inquired, wasn't it, from Shukadeva Goswami. And he wanted to perfect his life. He wanted, he realized that the purpose of life is not to stay around here. The purpose of life is to return to Krishna. This is already a great goal, he knew. That was his purpose, to be completely freed of all other goals. And just focus on that one goal. Gave up his kingdom. Pretty far out. He was not an old man, he was quite young. In the prime of his life. And everybody loved him. It wasn't really the time for him to renounce his kingdom. But because of this Shringi who cursed him to die, he took advantage of this and just gave him everything to show a higher principle. It's different when you're fully engaged in devotional activity, but in normal society, what is that higher principle? To show what the goal, the purpose of life. We even see in the case of Kapila and his father. What was his father's name? Kardama Muni. Kardama Muni was, a great sage, but his wife Devahuti, she wanted children, he gave her children. And then he decided it's time to leave. But she was very disturbed because she had no son, so he gave her a son. And almost as soon as the son was born, he left home. The son was no ordinary son, the son was an expansion of the personality of Godhead. Can you imagine? And you just walk away? Weird. He's teaching another example, isn't he? The importance of human life. Vedic culture was geared towards this, going back to Godhead. It wasn't geared towards sense gratification or economic development. The whole purpose of human society is to facilitate going back to Godhead, isn't it? It's not meant just that we achieve things in this world. They're useless if they don't help us go back to Godhead. Everything's useless. It's Shrama Evi Kevalam, a waste of time. If it doesn't help to gain liberation or going back to Godhead. It means we have to take birth again. God knows where. So the pious persons knew this, and they would sacrifice everything for them. Brahman knew the goal of life. So Parikshit Maharaj, of course, he was in a position where we may not realize we're in that position. We think, oh, that's okay, but I'm not in that position. I'm not going to die in 7 days. We might die in 7 seconds. You don't know when you're going to die. It could happen any moment, isn't it? People are dying every day, aren't they? I heard they were. I heard people die every day. Is that right? You've probably seen a few people die in your life, being a doctor. Many of you have seen, perhaps family members, whatever. It happens. I don't know the exact figures, but every day maybe 200,000 or 300,000 people die. You don't read that in the newspaper. When 2 people die in a helicopter accident, it's headlines in the newspaper. Right? One person dies in a bomb in Ukraine, something, it's headlines of the newspaper. But every day about 300,000 people die. That doesn't include those in the womb. We're talking only human here. There's about 150,000 a day are murdered in the womb. So you've got about 400,000 humans dying a day on this planet. That's quite a lot, relatively speaking. So it happens all the time. It might happen at any moment. It can just happen right on the spot. We've got to be prepared. Be prepared, as the Boy Scouts we used to be told, be prepared. You have to be prepared. Parikshit Maharaj is showing us how to be prepared. How to prepare for the inevitable. The glorification of the personality of Godhead is performed in the parampara system, conveyed from spiritual master to disciple. Such glorification is relished by those who are. We may not relish it. We may like it, but we don't really relish it. Relish means complete satisfaction, fullness. We may not completely relish it. Why do we not fully relish?
We are not pure enough.
We're not pure enough. So what does that mean in a more practical sense?
We still have some material desires.
Still got material desires. Such glorification is relished by those no longer interested. no longer interested in the false temporary glorification of this cosmic manifestation. Maybe we are. I am. I don't like you. We like to hear about mundane things sometimes. It's a bit of sense gratification. Churning the nectar of world news. Churning the nectar of your health, your family, world news. Maybe something we like, some activity which we like. Some conspiracy theory. Whoa. I was thinking of that today. I was thinking to write to it, Joy. I've known them for a long time. It occurred to me that a waste of time just trying to analyze. Of course it's a conspiracy. In one sense, the whole material world is. Individuals are just instruments to enact what has to be done. They're not the doers. We get so hung up in all this stuff, It's a waste of time. Waste of time. Do the needful and get out, like Siddhartha said. This place is no fit place for a gentleman. Do your business and get out. Don't hang around in the school. Right? My father used to hang around in the school. He said it's the most peaceful time of his day. He locks the door, no one bothers him. And sitting there, read the newspaper. Peace. But that's not what we're meant to do. We're meant to know what our business is and finish it. Don't hang around. So this is the business. They're not interested in temporary glorification of this material world. Descriptions of the Lord are the right medicine. This word, Oshadhiya, medicine, Ayurveda. The right medicines for the conditioned soul undergoing repeated birth and death. The right medicine. Not hearing the news or becoming bewildered by Mahamaya with all of it. Glittering, attractive objects that she gives before us in the form of woman, man, bodies, trees, birds, beasts, this thing, that thing, beautiful beaches, you name it, dreams of the future, all forms of Maya's attraction, no longer attracted by that. That attraction keeps us in the world, binds us in this world. And in the earlier chapters of Bhagavad Gita, in the second chapter, first canto, what's that verse? Yada nujasana yukta karma gvanti nibandaram chindanti kovidas tasya kona kuryat katagate. What does Sutta Goswami say?
With the sword of knowledge, cut the knots of material bondage.
Intelligent persons. And they cut this karma grunta, this bondage in the material world. Well, as you could say, with a sword chindanti, they cut it. That sword of knowledge is here in topics concerning Krishna. It releases us from the bondage of hearing topics of the material world which keep us bound up in this world. You have to hear what you need to know for your deal, but not unnecessary. Wasting our time. Descriptions of the Lord are the right medicine for the conditioned soul undergoing repeated birth and death. Bhava is the cycle of birth and death. Therefore, who will cease? Who will begin, in that case? But here, who will cease hearing such glorifications of the Lord? Once you start, who will cease hearing? Sometimes you get a little taste of that, isn't it? You kirtan, you want it to go on forever. Well, sometimes you get into hearing Shastra or something, you just want to carry on, you don't want to stop. Sometimes that happens. But it's time to eat, you're getting tired, you've got many WhatsApp calls to deal with, you've got your daily business to deal with, your issues, your family, or this or that, so many things. You've got the engineer coming at 10 o'clock, and usually the list goes on and on and on. And we get carried away, but a little attraction sometimes is there. But in this case, who will cease hearing such glorifications of the Lord except a butcher,
and
candlestick maker, no, that's interesting. And a animal, yes, or
Someone who's killing the soul.
who said that? Yeah, a killer of the soul. How can you kill the soul? What does that mean? You can't kill the soul. It kills. Krishna says you can't be killed. The soul can never be killed by any weapon, or moistened by water, or withered by the wind, or burned by fire. He's eternal. So how can you kill the soul?
You kill the spiritual progress.
Kill the spiritual progress, that's one way. Like Kamsa's trying to stop this spiritual progress. Or when he personally denies the very existence of your spiritual being. Totally denied. He just totally identified himself with this material body. Not exactly killing the soul, but in one sense killing the soul, because our constitutional situation is not to be in this world. So anyone who considers they are, you say, this is me, this body is me, this is mine, this is my world, I am a human, I am a this, and that is in one sense killing the soul. Denying its very existence. Dream world. And the butcher is who? Basic means one who's killing others. Doesn't just mean somebody in a shop who's selling meat. Practically everyone's in that category. Where you're causing harm to other living entities for your own sense gratification. So pretty much everyone's in that category. Hardly anyone has a relish for hearing and chanting. And we may also be, at least in the second section, in terms of killing the soul to some extent, but we still act on a bodily platform of life in many cases, mental, physical. And therefore we don't necessarily relish. We get distracted by bodily and material reasons. In the stage we're at, that's going to happen. But we should try to more and more focus, at least when the opportunity is there, on hearing, chanting and remembering. Tasmate kena bhagavan sattvatam patihi shvakadya kititatyas chetye pujas chitta. Therefore, with one point of attention, one should constantly hear about worship, remember the personality of Godhead, friend of the devotees. Recommendation that we should try to more and more chant the holy name. All other things will come into place. Now we didn't get into the purport. This gives the additional notes for the chapter that you can read them. It's very long, 12 pages or more than 12. Covering various verses. It's not a note on this verse, by the way, but they mention it. There are notes on the verse I just mentioned, the last one, and a lot of verses throughout the chapter, going into more detail, a little bit more clarification. Well, there we go. Hare Krishna. And don't be like Kamsa, who's totally afraid. He wants to lock up the sources of fear. We do that inside our hearts sometimes too, don't we? We lock things in our heart when they're perhaps an impediment to our illusory idea of how we can advance in Krishna consciousness by keeping things a secret from others, in case they misunderstand or judge us nasty as a result, or we lose our position as a result, or something like that. We don't have any position in this world. We don't belong here. So, when we lock things in our heart, that also keeps us locked up in this world. Science is subject matter, you could say. So he wanted to lock his own father in the prison, thinking that would solve the problem. It didn't solve the problem in your own heart. As Prahlad said to his own father, you are thinking this one's your enemy and that one's your enemy. There are no such enemies as such. Your only enemy is your uncontrolled, restless mind, your only enemy. Even if you lock everything in mind, it doesn't solve anything. Even if you go, I'm going to go somewhere else, but don't forget the mind goes with you. In fact, we go with our mind basically. Mind comes with us, we go with the mind. It's not solve the problem. You have to deal with it, not just try to facilitate it all the time. Just to train the mind. Very sure, Papa. Any comments or questions? You going to chant the verse, Sangeeta? Sangeeta? Is she there? Very soon. Any questions? So tomorrow I told you back to the cash night. Coming. What time is he supposed to arrive?
Around 11ish.
11ish.
Leaving Paris
Tomorrow morning.
around 6.
Do you want?
He will be leaving Paris around 6.
Unless you stop for an hour, it only takes. At that time of the day, depending which part of Paris.
But he is staying at Patita Bhavana.
Yeah, so from that part of Paris, you can get here in 3 hours. If you don't stop. If you're coming by car, are you coming by car?
Navacharya probably.
Oh, that's right.
I think so more like about 9, 10 o'clock.
Okay.
Not later. I mean, unless some big
No,
traffic.
it's good.
Wait a minute, he's staying at Petite Pavin's house, which is a very small apartment. Why does it require a big vehicle to take him out?
There is other devotees joining him and they have like equipment, 6 bags.
Oh, I see there. Well, that will take longer to pick them up, I guess. They can't stay at Petite's place, it's very small.
I can check up where the
Yeah.
others are staying.
Anyway, whatever. That is not what time it is. So he's arriving tomorrow for 3 days.
Yes, that for him it will be 4.
Pardon?
For Maharaj it will be kind of 4. The others come to 3.
Oh. Friday, Saturday, Sunday programs here at the temple. And I don't know, has he ever been here before?
First time I guess.
I'm not sure if he must have, may have come in the past. Do you ever remember him coming? I can't remember. He came to Paris several times, but I've never heard of him coming. But he may have done. So please try to make sure you're here for the morning program. Please try to be clean and tidy. Please don't talk to Jalpa here, there, and everywhere. Don't sit around in the Prasada room. They're still there at lunchtime sometimes. I see some of those that take breakfast. It's almost lunch. They're still sitting at the Prasada room. Remember what we're here for. Yeah. Hare Krishna. He's good. He's one of the business of the gurus. He reminds us of what we should be doing. Not what we shouldn't be doing. Prabhupada ki jai.
Janananda Goswami Maharaj ki jai.